Jay Blades was the comforting face of the repair shop, the man who welcomed broken heirlooms and teary-eyed guests with a smile that felt like home. For years he stood as a symbol of kindness, craftsmanship, and emotional healing, a gentle presence in a chaotic world. But what if that image was never the full story? What if the man who helped others restore their treasured pasts was hiding something that couldn't be fixed with glue and polish? Because Jay didn't just quietly step back from the limelight. His career didn't fizzle out. It imploded, under the weight of allegations so serious, so at odds with his carefully cultivated public persona, that fans were left stunned. The smiling restorer of memories was now facing a reality that threatened to rewrite everything we thought we knew about him. And as details began to surface, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a fall from grace, and it was a total collapse. If someone like Jay Blades, a man celebrated for compassion, empathy, and the art of repair, turns out to be the opposite of what we believed, then it forces us to question more than just his actions. It shakes the very foundation of how we form connections with public figures. Jay wasn't just a presenter. He was a symbol of healing, of decency, of quiet strength in a world that often feels disposable. Viewers didn't just watch him, they trusted him. They projected their own values onto him, made space for him in their routines, their homes, their hearts. So when a figure like that begins to fall, the damage spreads far beyond one man's reputation. It's not just about fame crumbling, it's about the betrayal of emotional investment. Because when someone built on warmth and integrity unravels, under the weight of serious allegations, it doesn't just end a career, it breaks the illusion. It calls into question how much of what we believe about the people we admire is real, and how much is just a story we wanted to be true. When The Repair Shop first aired in 2017, it wasn't just another daytime TV slot. It was a quiet revolution, a slow, deliberate antidote to the fast-paced chaos of modern life. At its center was Jay Blades, a man who quickly became more than just a presenter. He was the soul of the show, the glue that held it together, both literally and metaphorically. With his calm voice, reassuring presence, and signature smile, Jay embodied the very essence of what the program aimed to offer: warmth, restoration, and emotional refuge. As antique furniture was gently restored and childhood mementos brought back to life, Jay stood as a constant, a bridge between the past and the present, between heartbreak and healing. Jay's appeal went beyond his skill with wood and varnish. In an age where authenticity is rare, he came across as utterly genuine. He didn't posture for the camera or put on a performance. He simply was, open, grounded, and comforting. Viewers saw in him the friend they wished they had, the neighbor who always knew how to fix things, the father figure who made everything feel safe again. It wasn't just his craftsmanship that built trust, it was his presence. When an elderly woman handed him her late husband's broken clock, her eyes filled with tears. Not just because of the memories it held, but because she trusted Jay to bring it back. That kind of emotional connection is rare on television, and Jay became the face of it. Over time, he wasn't just a man in a workshop, he was a national treasure. Talk shows invited him, magazines profiled him, and fans shared clips of his kindest moments like digital heirlooms of their own. His backstory, rising from hardship, using craft as a form of healing, only deepened the myth. He wasn't just fixing furniture, he was fixing narratives. In an era of cynicism, Jay offered something wholesome, something human. He was more than a host, he was a symbol. And in that image, polished and polished again, the public saw not just a craftsman, but a beacon. Which is precisely why what followed felt like more than a scandal. It felt like betrayal. For years, Jay Blades was a steady digital presence, equal parts craftsman and confidant. His social media wasn't flashy or overly curated. It was sincere. Behind-the-scenes clips from the repair shop, heartfelt reflections on life and community, occasional throwbacks to his past, and responses to fans that often felt more personal than promotional. But somewhere along the way, that presence started to dim. Posts became less frequent. Updates that once came weekly turned to silence. And for a man who had built a career on openness and connection, the sudden quiet didn't go unnoticed. At first, fans assumed it was a break, maybe a much-needed pause in an otherwise busy schedule. But weeks passed, then months. No announcements, no casual videos, no replies to concerned comments asking if he was okay. What was once a friendly scroll through stories of restoration now looked like an abandoned archive. And with that silence came speculation. Was he ill? Burned out? Had something happened off camera? In a culture where a celebrity's digital footprint is often the first to signal change, Jay's vanishing act online was a red flag, one that started to wave louder with every unanswered question. The silence online was one thing, but soon viewers noticed something even harder to ignore. Jay wasn't just quiet on social media, he was missing entirely. New episodes of The Repair Shop began to air, but his familiar face wasn't there. Not in the background, not in the introductions, not even in the credits. Loyal fans, accustomed to his comforting presence, were left confused. Where was Jay? Had he left the show? Was it temporary or something more permanent? Outside the show, the signs multiplied. A scheduled series of promotional events and public appearances, once headlined by Jay, were either quietly cancelled or went ahead without him. Tours promoting the Repair Shop brand were suddenly rebranded or delayed. There was no public explanation, just a growing list of absences. Industry watchers started to raise their eyebrows. This wasn't the usual case of a presenter stepping back for rest or scheduling conflicts. This was a disappearance, sudden, total, and suspiciously unaddressed. As Jay's absence stretched on, fans moved from concern to curiosity and eventually to unease. Online forums and fan groups lit up with theories. Some clung to the hope that he was simply taking time off for personal reasons. Others began connecting dots: the deleted social media posts, the missing episodes, the absence of any formal announcement. The vacuum of information became fertile ground for speculation. But the real turning point came when people noticed something subtle and chilling. Episodes featuring Jay were being removed from BBC iPlayer and other streaming platforms. No press release, no acknowledgement, just gone. It wasn't just fans who picked up on it. Journalists began asking questions. Industry sources whispered about ongoing internal issues and personnel adjustments within the show's production. The BBC, known for protecting its talent unless absolutely necessary, stayed unusually tight-lipped. Their silence only fanned the flames. Why erase content tied to the show's most recognizable face? Why not issue a basic statement, even just to reassure fans? This wasn't damage control. It was strategic withdrawal, the kind that hinted something serious was going on behind the scenes. And by now it was no longer just viewers speculating. The media had started digging. Bit by bit, Jay Blades was being scrubbed from the very narrative he helped build. His name, once front and center in promotional materials, faded from interviews, press kits, and cast listings. Media outlets that had once profiled him with glowing admiration now omitted him entirely from coverage about the Repair Shop. Even reruns, staples of daytime BBC programming, shifted focus to other cast members or were replaced altogether. It wasn't a rebranding. It was a quiet erasure. There was no formal statement, no farewell segment, no tribute to the man who, for years, had been the face of the show. And that absence spoke volumes. In the tightly managed world of public relations, especially within a network like the BBC, silence isn't just an omission. It's a signal, a sign that what's unfolding behind closed doors isn't safe for public comment. For longtime fans, it was disorienting. Jay had once symbolized restoration, empathy, and trust. Now his disappearance was being handled like a scandal too delicate to name. The result was a kind of collective gaslighting. Viewers who remembered the episodes, the emotional moments, the bond they felt with Jay, were left wondering if the industry that built him was now trying to pretend he had never been there at all. And still, no one, not Jay, not the BBC, was ready to explain why. The truth that finally broke through the silence was damning. Jay Blades, once the face of gentleness and trust, was charged with controlling and coercive behavior toward his estranged wife. These weren't vague accusations or tabloid rumors. They were formal charges filed through the legal system, carrying the full weight of criminal accountability. According to reports, the allegations detailed a disturbing pattern of behavior that allegedly caused his partner to fear violence on more than one occasion. For a public built on the image of Jay as a protector, healer, and emotionally intelligent man, the language of the charges alone was enough to spark disbelief. This wasn't just a reputational stain. In the UK, coercive control is legally recognized as a serious offense, one tied closely to psychological abuse, power imbalances, and long-term emotional harm. The law treats it not as a private issue, but as a public danger. In that context, the man who once symbolized restoration was now being accused of something fundamentally corrosive: the systematic breaking down of another person's autonomy and safety. As soon as the charges became public, the media firestorm ignited. Headlines once reserved for praise and inspiration were now overtaken by words like charges, abuse, and allegations. Within hours, outlets across the UK and beyond began dissecting Jay's downfall. The court details were quoted widely, and the contrast between his public image and the private accusations became the dominant narrative. The fallout was swift and irreversible. The BBC, which had until then maintained silence, began quietly taking action. Jay's presence was erased from future promotional materials. Previously aired episodes featuring him were removed from BBC iPlayer and international syndication. Planned events, including the repair shop tour and interviews, were cancelled without explanation. Sponsors and collaborators backed away, and even his personal projects outside the show appeared to stall or disappear. In the world of broadcast media, this was not a delay, it was a severance. Despite the weight of the allegations, Jay pleaded not guilty. Through legal counsel, he maintained his innocence and prepared to face trial at Worcester Crown Court. But legally innocent or not, the public arena works by different rules, especially in the age of digital backlash and viral outrage. The BBC's response, though restrained, spoke volumes. By removing him from active projects and distancing the brand from his image, they drew a line between the show's values and the man now accused of violating them. The platform that once celebrated Jay's presence was now retroactively purging it. This wasn't just damage control, it was reputational triage. And for a show like The Repair Shop, built on trust, familial warmth, and quiet dignity, the association with the public scandal of this nature became untenable. For fans, the news landed like a gut punch. Social media, once filled with admiration for Jay's restoration work and emotional conversations, turned into a battleground. Some longtime viewers were devastated, unsure how to process the allegations against someone they had admired for years. Others were angry, not just at Jay, but at the system that had kept them in the dark for so long. There were calls for patience, for letting the legal process run its course. But there was also heartbreak, especially among those who had seen Jay as more than a celebrity, as a kind of emotional role model. Fandoms fractured overnight. Where there had once been unity and affection, now there were divisions. Some refused to believe the allegations. Others withdrew their support entirely, and many more were simply left confused, struggling to reconcile the Jay they thought they knew with the man described in court documents. This case became more than just a scandal. It became a cautionary tale about the fragility of public trust. Jay Blades wasn't just a man. He was a brand, a symbol, a projected idea of what kindness and vulnerability could look like on national television. But when public figures fall, they don't fall alone. They drag with them the stories, hopes, and emotions audiences attach to them. That's the true cost of celebrity. Not just the collapse of a reputation, but the betrayal of those who believed in the illusion. Jay's downfall highlights the dangerous gap between persona and reality, and how little we often know about the people we idolize. It shows how carefully constructed images can mask deeply troubling truths, and how when those truths emerge, they don't just destroy careers. They shake faith in the stories we tell ourselves about who we trust and why. In the end, Jay Blades' story isn't just about what was broken behind the scenes. It's about how quickly something once beloved, so trusted, so familiar, can fracture under the weight of its own myth. The repair shop was never just about restoring heirlooms. It was about restoring emotions, memories, and belief in something good. And Jay, for so many, was the face of that goodness. His absence now leaves more than just a gap in the show's cast list. It leaves a crack in its foundation. Can the repair shop survive without him? The BBC seems to believe so. The team behind the scenes has pressed on, highlighting other craftsmen, refocusing on the objects and their stories. But the truth is, the tone has shifted. The warmth hasn't vanished, but the atmosphere is changed. A core element of trust, once central to the viewing experience, has been complicated. For Jay, the future is far murkier. Even if he is found not guilty, the damage to his image may be irreparable. In the court of public opinion, the suggestion of harm, especially harm that contrasts so violently with a carefully constructed image of care, can linger long after a legal verdict. Whether he could return to television or whether audiences would welcome him back is a question that remains unanswered. What's certain is that the brand he once built around wholesomeness, vulnerability, and empathy will never carry the same weight again. When a figure's image is rooted in moral clarity, the cost of any contradiction is immense. This saga also turns the mirror on the audience. It forces a reflection not just on Jay, but on the culture of celebrity we participate in. We reward authenticity and relatability, but we also simplify. We turn real people into symbols of hope, of goodness, of redemption. And then we're shocked when they fail to live up to those ideals. Jay's story is a reminder of just how fragile those symbols are and how quickly admiration can turn to disappointment. In the end, what's left is more than a career in ruins. It's a lesson about the dangers of image, the weight of trust, and the real-life consequences when those things begin to crack.